Well, this week was a bit momentous. We said goodbye to our first Australian female Prime Minister, Julia Gillard. It was kind of full on, and she did say something very interesting in her farewell speech. She said about being a woman that gender didn't have nothing to do with her prime ministership, and yet it didn't have everything to do with it. Sort of implying something that's really true, that gender was a big issue. In fact, having Julia Gillard as Prime Minister put gender as an issue fair and square on the radar. Since her misogyny speech last year, we have been talking about women in power, about gender, about are we discriminated against? Something that's made a lot of men in the media, and I think a lot of men in politics, extremely uncomfortable, because the world is asking a big question, and they're asking that now, which is Australia sexist? Yes, we are. Turns out we're racist and we're sexist. Who wouldn't want to come here? You know, when you look back, I was listening to an interview with Ros Kelly, and when she was actually the first sitting MLP to actually give birth, while she was sitting. Well, not sitting, she actually got up to give birth. I think she went home to do that and breastfeed, then come back and sit with those blokes. But when she came in, which I think was about probably the very early 90s, maybe the late 80s, before she came in to sit with the Labor government, there were no women sitting in Parliament at all. When she came in, there were 3 of them, and when she went to sit down, one of her co-Labor Party comrades said to her, I didn't realise when there was going to be women here, I'd have to sit next to one of you Sheilas, which was her welcome, which kind of showed that's not that long ago. And now here we have Julia Gillard as Prime Minister, and now former Prime Minister. Now, I guess we're sort of saying, has there been a gender issue as part of it? And I'd have to say fair and squarely, in my opinion, it's been a lot about gender. Let's just take the month of June, 1 month in her Prime Ministership. There was the menu at the sort of Liberal National dinner, I think for Malcolm Brough, where it actually had something about, it was the Julia Gillard Kentucky Fried Quail, had small breasts, large thighs, and a big red box. That's kind of a little bit sexist, I reckon. There's a little bit, it feels misogynist. I don't know about you, but, kind of making fun of a woman's big red box is kind of bad. I don't know if there's any Labor Party dinners where they featured menus talking about a shrivelled up, disappointing, stupid Abbott cock. I doubt that they did, because that didn't happen. And then, of course, there was Howard Sattler, the delightful sort of shock jock who asked the question about her husband because he was a hairdresser. Which answer to the rumours, was he gay? That is offensive on many levels. I actually expected Shag to rise up. That straight hairdressers against gay stereotypes, because clearly, it's offensive to hairdressers all over the country, particularly straight hairdressers that are actually marginalised. My husband, he's a nurse. You see, he's a nurse. And just because he's in a female-dominated profession doesn't mean that he is gay. Are they kind of saying, because politics is a male-dominated profession, that therefore Julia Gillard, the childless atheist herself, therefore must be living in some sort of hoax relationship and therefore is gay? But I can't actually ask you that, so I'm going to ask if your husband's gay as a sort of a cover story. It just felt all a little bit vile and all a little bit terrible, but apparently that was okay. It was actually quite okay to do that. And then there was the Women's Weekly photo shoot where she got into a lot of trouble, even at the beginning of this month. And in the photo shoot, she's pictured on the front cover of the Women's Weekly knitting. Now, people got very upset about Julia knitting, saying, how can a woman who's knitting, well, she's diminishing the public office by knitting. Oh, it's okay to have photos of John Howard jogging. He didn't diminish the public office by doing something as trivial as jogging. Or, Hawkeye went gambling, didn't he, on the weekends? But everyone said, oh, that made him seem all matey. And, what's his name, Abbott, he likes to go cycling. And that's okay. But when you have our Prime Minister, who happens to be a woman, indulging in something as trivial as women's work as a craft handed down by grandmothers, I mean, how could you even think a person that did that could lead the country? Now, if that isn't rampant misogyny, I really don't know what is. It just seems like we've got to the point in our country, well, that's where it is. And what upset me the most was that commentators, and particularly the opposition, have been saying about Julia all the time, going, oh, she's playing the gender card, diminishing the whole sort of story of women's liberation to to a card game, as if it's a card that you play, on your level playing field when you're not winning. So you actually play this card to actually make sure you get the upper hand because you're that vile and evil that you play a card. It's not a card, you morons. When you're a woman, it's not a card at all. It's not about playing for advantage. It's about trying to get the bloody playing field level because you are at constant disadvantage. And by saying that, men get very uncomfortable. Nice, white, bigoted men get very uncomfortable. Does it apply to people in wheelchairs as well? Are they going to play the disabled card? Gay people play the gay card? Asian people play the race card or the Asian card, the black card? Does every minority group or marginalised group now, when they actually bring up the fact of their oppression or their marginalisation, be accused of being playing cards and using their card to sort of bring down the sort of dominant paradigm? Well, I think it's terrible. Anyway, it's not a card at all. I think it's just terrible. Anyway, so I say thank you to Julia Gillard for putting gender on the agenda, because no doubt it will go right off it again and we'll pretend that women actually aren't thought of as a lesser sort of, part of the human race, that, there's no such thing as sexism. That fact is all incredibly equal. And us girls will go back to the kitchen where we belong. Here, love, I'm going to play the gender card. I would really love to see Penny Wong actually move into the PM spot. She could play every card. She could play the race card. She could play the lesbian card. She could play the woman card. It'd be a lay-down misère. I think I beat you.
Always do.
Yeah.